The first text from my mother arrived 22 minutes before my daughter's christening started. "Sorry honey, something came up with Preston's event. We'll celebrate little Emma another time." Little Emma. That part irritated me more than it should have. Like my daughter was suddenly some optional calendar adjustment because my cousin Preston decided to throw a charity gala the same afternoon. I remember staring at my phone inside the church hallway while my wife Lena adjusted Emma's tiny white gown near the stained glass windows behind me. Outside, rain tapped softly against the old stone church like somebody drumming fingers on a table. Lena looked at my face immediately. "They cancelled?" I nodded once. "Every single one." She closed her eyes for half a second. "Not dramatic. Just tired." Honestly, that reaction hurt worse than anger. Because disappointment means your expectations already died quietly before the moment arrived. My name's Declan Rhodes. I'm 42 years old, and my family has spent most of my life treating wealth like proof of moral superiority. Whoever had the biggest house suddenly became the wisest person in the room. Whoever drove the nicest car got interrupted less at dinner. And for the past 6 years, that person was my cousin Preston. Preston made money in commercial real estate right before the market exploded. Luxury condos. Boutique hotels. That kind of thing. Guy walked through family gatherings like he personally invented success. Expensive watches. Loud confidence. Constant stories about high-level people nobody actually asked about. Meanwhile, I ran a regional children's literacy nonprofit that honestly paid less than some restaurant managers make. Didn't bother me much. I loved the work. But to my family? Low salary meant low status. Simple equation. You could see it in tiny moments. My opinions getting skipped over at dinner. My mother introducing Preston as the successful one. Even jokes. "Oh careful, Uncle Darren would laugh. Declan's gonna donate your wallet to charity." Everybody always laughed just enough to make sure I noticed. I usually smiled through it. Not because it didn't bother me. Because some arguments aren't worth the energy they cost. Then Lena got pregnant after 8 years of trying. That changed everything for us. Complicated pregnancy too. Bed rest. Hospital visits. A miscarriage scare around month 5 that honestly scared me so badly I started waking up randomly at night just to make sure Lena was breathing beside me. So when Emma finally arrived healthy, that christening mattered. A lot. Not because we're intensely religious. Because survival makes people sentimental. The church itself was small. Old. Quiet. Lena spent weeks planning lunch afterward at this little family-owned Italian restaurant downtown where the owner kept promising Emma free cannoli for life. We invited 32 people. 27 cancelled within 48 hours after Preston announced his charity gala. Charity gala. Funny phrase considering I knew exactly where the money came from. See, here's the part nobody in my family knew. About 3 years earlier, Preston's company nearly collapsed after a disastrous investment project outside Nashville. Massive debt exposure. Lawsuits pending. Quiet panic behind expensive suits. I knew because one of his former employees contacted our nonprofit asking for transitional literacy grants for laid-off workers. That's how I found out. And honestly, I helped Preston quietly afterward. Not publicly. Not emotionally. Just financially. My nonprofit had connections with several philanthropic foundations. One private donor group trusted my judgment enough to fund community redevelopment partnerships. Preston's company received a rescue grant package through one of those partnerships 6 months later. Anonymous donor recommendation. Mine. Nobody knew. Not even Preston. Because I genuinely believed helping family quietly mattered more than getting credit loudly. Yeah. That didn't age well. By the time Emma's christening started, only 6 relatives showed up. 6. Lena's parents. My old friend Marcus. 2 elderly aunts who probably would have attended during hurricanes. And my younger sister Noelle, who looked embarrassed enough for the entire family combined. The empty pews hit harder than I expected. You notice absence physically sometimes. Like missing teeth your tongue keeps finding automatically. During the ceremony, Father Brennan held Emma gently while church lights spilled across the baptismal water. Lena smiled through tears. I did too. But honestly, part of me kept thinking about Preston's gala happening 15 miles away while my mother probably posed for photographs pretending family values mattered deeply to her. Afterward we sat inside the restaurant eating baked ziti while rain streaked down the windows. Noelle finally sighed. They're all at Preston's thing. I stabbed my pasta quietly. Figured. She hesitated. He told everybody some investor from Atlanta might fund his expansion project. There it was. Money. Always money. Marcus leaned back in his chair watching me carefully. You okay? I almost answered automatically. Then stopped. Because honestly? No. Not really. I was tired of watching my family treat decency like weakness and wealth like sainthood. That night, around 11, Preston finally called me. Loud music blasted behind him. Hey cousin, he shouted drunkenly. Sorry I missed the church thing. The church thing. Interesting description for my daughter's christening. I stayed calm. Hope the gala went well. Oh man, packed house. Investors everywhere. Then he laughed slightly. You know how it is. Yeah. I actually did. Then came the line that shifted everything. We're announcing a major donor partnership next month, he bragged. Biggest financial backing this company's ever had. I sat up slowly. What partnership? Confidential for now, he said smugly. But trust me, this changes everything. That's when I knew this situation was about to get messy. See, the philanthropic foundation Preston referenced had strict ethical conditions tied to continued funding. Conditions he clearly never bothered reading carefully. Because arrogant people rarely study details once they think they already own the room. One condition mattered most. Public misrepresentation of donor relationships triggered immediate financial review. And Preston had spent months privately implying those philanthropic partnerships resulted from his personal influence and elite networking. Not true. At all. Marcus, who sat on advisory committees connected to those foundations, confirmed everything after I explained the situation. He's using donor relationships publicly? Constantly. Marcus whistled quietly. That's not smart. No. It really wasn't. Still, I stayed patient. Angry people rush. Calm people document. About 3 weeks later, Preston hosted another investor event downtown celebrating his strategic funding alliances. My mother practically treated it like the Oscars. She called beforehand saying, "You should really support family success for once." That sentence almost impressed me honestly. Support family success. Apparently my daughter's christening didn't qualify. Lena squeezed my hand before we entered the ballroom. You sure about this? I nodded. Yep. Preston stood near the stage wearing a navy tuxedo and that familiar expression wealthy people get when applause starts sounding permanent. Guy thought he owned the room. Halfway through the presentation, Preston began thanking exclusive philanthropic supporters who recognized his leadership vision. That was the exact phrase. Leadership vision. Marcus glanced toward me from across the ballroom and gave a tiny nod. Time. After the applause ended, one of the foundation representatives stood slowly from a front table. Older woman named Evelyn Shaw. Very calm. Very respected. And absolutely not somebody Preston expected to speak publicly. She adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Mercer," she said politely, "before further announcements continue, I believe clarification regarding donor representation may be necessary." The ballroom shifted immediately. You could feel confusion spreading table by table. Preston laughed nervously. "I'm sorry." Evelyn continued calmly. "The foundation partnerships referenced tonight were approved primarily through private advocacy submitted by Mr. Declan Rhodes." Silence. Real silence. Not polite silence. Shock silence. My mother's face actually lost color. Preston stared at me across the ballroom like his brain temporarily stopped functioning. Evelyn kept speaking gently but very clearly. "Additionally, Foundation ethics committees are now reviewing concerns regarding repeated public misrepresentation connected to donor influence." That landed hard. Because suddenly Preston's success story looked a lot less self-made than he'd spent years pretending. And worse? The one family member everybody ignored had quietly been the reason his company survived at all. Preston walked toward me afterward looking completely rattled. "You funded that?" "No," I said calmly. "I recommended saving it." Tiny difference. Massive difference. My mother tried speaking next. "Declan, honey, why didn't you tell us?" I looked at her for a second. Honestly, I wasn't even angry anymore. Just clear. "Would you've listened?" Nobody answered. The review process damaged Preston badly over the next few months. Investor confidence dropped. Partnerships froze temporarily. A few board members resigned quietly before scrutiny spread further. Nothing dramatic. Just consequences arriving professionally. As for me, life stayed pretty simple. Emma's first birthday happened 6 months later at the same little Italian restaurant. This time every seat filled early. Funny how respect suddenly appears once money gets attached to your name. But honestly, that wasn't the satisfying part. The satisfying part came near the end of dinner when Lena leaned over holding Emma while candlelight flickered across the table and whispered, "They finally see you." Maybe. But sitting there watching my daughter laugh mashed cake onto her own face, I realized something quieter. I didn't need my family to finally value me. I just needed to stop confusing their approval with my actual worth.